as Springfield goes, so goes downtown. I mean, these neighborhoods are so interrelated. You know, downtown, Springfield, Old South Side, which I refer to when I talk about St. Nicholas and Inglewood, San Souci, Spring Park. They are still center to the core of downtown and provide a real opportunity for affordable, attainable housing.
For,
you know,
back then, not now, maybe.
Well, I tell you,
at least.
Springfield's amazing. I mean, I have friends who have, as you know, they're building era-style homes now in Springfield, and
new homes,
brand new homes, and friends who just built over on East 5th Street. And you can see the neighborhoods are changing somewhat. There's some gentrification, and
which I wrote about
a
while back, and Tanya Weathersby wrote about also.
Well, you know,
actually, before I get any further, I just want to introduce you.
Oh, sure.
You're Earl Johnson. Do you use your middle initial, Johnson Jr.?
Well, I tend to go by Earl Johnson Jr. Okay. You know, my late father was a city councilman for many years here, and a lawyer like me. He, when he was my age, he was representing Martin Luther King. He cut his teeth on civil rights litigation. And
he was a leader in the civil rights era in Jacksonville, and he didn't he work on a case in St. Augustine?
He did. He represented Martin Luther King in St. Augustine. MLK, Reverend Abernathy, Andy Young, Hosea Williams all met at my parents' house in the spring of 1964 to organize really the only King-led civil rights march in Florida. And a series of marches that was held that were held in St. Augustine during that period. And Dad represented MLK and the other civil rights leaders. And of course, Dr. King was arrested along with others. Dad represented them in court in St. Augustine. And then here in Jacksonville, he was actually transferred while in custody from St. Augustine to Jacksonville. Dad also represented hundreds of other children who were arrested and held as delinquents who were arrested during the peaceful march, and was able to strike a deal with the governor at the time to allow the release of those children. 4 of the children refused the deal, and they were referred to as the St. Augustine Four. Their dad represented them in federal court. Eventually, they were released to their parents, and all charges were dropped. It was seen as a great victory down there. They just celebrated their 40th anniversary, and those kids are now pushing into their 60s. So it's a great story. Dad filed nearly all the school desegregation cases in the state of Florida, and he and many others were about that business, and it was all pro bono work. You know, there were no attorney's fees available for civil rights litigation back then. And about the same time, the city was in the midst of somewhat of municipal chaos. There was widespread governmental waste. The school system had been disaccredited. Tax dollars were leaving the core city out to the suburbs. The city was just unable to provide the most basic of city services to its taxpayers. And this is probably around 1966, 1967. My father and other leaders in town began to think about how to create literally a new city, one that would reach to the borders of the county, capture new tax dollars, keep taxes low, streamlined government, as opposed to county and city services. There would be one governmental entity, and they created what they called then the bold new city of the South, the Consolidated City of Jacksonville. He was secretary to the Consolidation Commission. He ran at large in 1967, was elected. It was monumental in many respects, namely that he was African American, running citywide at a southern town, and was involved in civil rights litigation.
He was also the first African American in Jacksonville to be added to the Jacksonville Bar Association too. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct.
Do you think his role in the civil rights litigation in St. Augustine and around Jacksonville, Southern Florida, had anything to do with that?
This actually predated that. Dad was he graduated from Howard University. He was tutored by Thurgood Marshall there, while Justice Marshall was Solicitor General for the President. He came here in 1958 and worked for Afro-American Life Insurance Company, and opened up a firm, a small law practice with Leander Shaw, who went on to become a Supreme Court Justice here in Florida. And it was during that period that he was approached by members of the Jacksonville Bar Association to become the first black member of the bar. It was before his involvement directly with Dr. King, and before that kind of notoriety. But there was a handful of black attorneys in town, literally about 7. And he was part of a new generation of attorneys who most all of them were either educated as a black attorney at Howard University or FAMU, which had a law school back then, and they just reopened their school out of, in Orlando. But my dad had the ability to communicate with folks, regardless of their race or background, and I think that came across. I think he impressed some folks who were in the bar, and they thought he was the guy to desegregate the Jacksonville Bar, and I believe that happened in 1960.
So, I guess moving into the you running for city council,
Yeah.
What district are you running for? And I mean, obviously your father inspired you. What finally pushed you to make the decision to? I don't know if you're leaving your law practice and going to run for city council. I don't know if those two can coexist, or whether they're mutually exclusive.
Well, they can coexist. Council is meant to be a part-time job.
Okay.
And although I'm sure I'll be dedicating a lot more than 20 hours a week to that service, I was raised in a household where public service was an honorable activity, and
your mother was a teacher.
She taught.
At JU.
That's correct. She taught. She was a professor at JU for 30 years, and between my parents, she was probably the more publicly active. She served on a number of boards. She was president of the YWCA, is an EVE Award recipient. But for them, public service was something that folks did if they could, and whether that was serving on a local board or acting as an elected official on behalf of the residents of Jacksonville, you gave back to the community. And so for me, that's always been an aspiration. I have been fortunate and blessed to serve on a number of important boards in Jacksonville, and they do wonderful work. But to have the opportunity to serve a constituency in the legislative branch seemed to me to be a very effective way to make Jacksonville a better place.